It's great to welcome back to the program today Congressman Ro Khanna, who represents California's 17th district. Congressman, I have to say, over the last 3 months, there has sort of been new life breathed into the Biden administration and Joe Biden, a number of legislative accomplishments. He seems significantly more energetic, arguably one of the most productive COVID isolation periods of anyone I can think of, Joe Biden had a couple of months ago. Do you get the sense that this will impact November's midterms for Democrats in the House like you, or that these are really siloed accomplishments that the Biden administration is experiencing?
There is a sense of a momentum, and that's because Democrats are delivering. The president delivered student debt relief. We're bringing manufacturing back to America with the semiconductor bill that I led with chips and science. We have the largest investment in climate in American history. So there's a sense that what the president said he would do, what we said we would do in 2020, we are doing. And that is finally breaking through. And there's also a sense that the Democratic Party is more unified than we've been probably since the beginning of the president's term.
Yeah, that seems absolutely to be taking place. And when you particularly contrast to what's happening in the Republican Party, where the RNC is stopping paying Trump's legal bills, and you're seeing significant disagreements on what the 2024 Republican nomination should look like, and whether the presence of people like Liz Cheney is even remotely welcome. It does seem like there is a significantly more unification among the Democratic Party. And also, on some issues, there seems to be disagreement. I mean, the student loan debt relief is an example where you have some who believe, even on the Democratic side, there should be no such debt relief at all. People decided to take out these loans and they should pay the loans. On the other hand, individuals who say all student loan debt should be forgiven. And then folks kind of in the middle who say, well, some debt relief is a good idea. Where are you on further debt relief?
I'm for getting debt relief up to 50,000. I mean, the reality is $10,000 is often what it costs someone to do one semester at a college or 1 year at a community college. It's not enough. But I applaud the president for taking a major step. This is going to help a lot of working and middle class folks. It is, again, a precedent for doing more. So I want to applaud him, but say that the job is not done.
On the manufacturing jobs, explain to us exactly how one brings a job back to the United States from overseas, where that will increase the total cost to produce whatever is being produced without making inflation worse. Like, what's the economic sequence wherein we can do that?
Well, actually, producing more things in the United States could help long term with inflation. I mean, one of the reasons we had inflation is we didn't make masks here. We didn't make semiconductors here. So you had to ship them from overseas at $15,000 shipping per container as opposed to $2,000. And the fact that we didn't have enough production meant that we had too much money chasing too few goods. If you increase production long term, that is deflationary. But you're saying in a micro case, well, how are you going to produce it here when wages may be higher, when environmental standards may be higher? I think that's why you need both government collaboration in terms of financing. I mean, other countries have helped finance new factories, new industries, government support on the workforce development at community colleges, and a collective regional economic development effort. That's what we did with FDR to build our economy, and there's no reason we can't do it now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the shipping is certainly a factor, but 15,000 versus 2 for a shipping container, paying dramatically lower wages on every unit on an ongoing basis seems like it would override the shipping cost. I mean, I guess it depends on the product and we'd have to sort of look at the details, but it seems also there probably has to be some shift in the thinking from the American public about the advantages to domestic manufacturing as well. And I don't know that the messaging is really there on that.
Well, I'm not sure it requires a change in consumer behavior. Obviously, it'd be great to buy American, but you could have government purchasing American with all the purchasing power we have. That would
Yes.
make a difference. Second, a lot of the advanced manufacturing has much less labor costs because of automation. It has increased productivity. Now, people say, well, this means less jobs, which is true, but those are going to be higher paying jobs, and it's going to mean more competitiveness for the product. So I think when it comes to advanced manufacturing, interwoven textiles, for example, as opposed to traditional manufacturing, that can be done here and will be done here. And the quality is often higher here. That's not just an opinion. The productivity of American workers is more than Germany or Japan. And so I think we have to be very deliberate about the type of production that can be done, the government partnership that is required, and we can do it in a way that is cost competitive.
Yeah, one high tech product that is being manufactured, at least partially in the United States, is Tesla electric vehicles, and it's been very interesting to see that many on the right, you would think, as I outlined yesterday, they should love electric vehicles. You can charge them at home with solar panels you own and not be dependent, right? There's this self-sufficiency aspect to it. For people who like fast cars, which are associated with alpha males in some right-wing circles, electric vehicles are very fast. There's all these reasons why the right should really be embracing electric vehicles, and yet they seem almost angry about them to some degree. Your colleague Marjorie Taylor Greene and many others are furious about electric vehicles. Are you surprised by the antipathy towards them from some on the right?
I'm not, because unfortunately climate has become so politicized that anything that is almost good for the climate generates skepticism on the right. And that's why I think we could just talk about the new industrialization of America. Let's build the new industries, new factories here. It turns out a lot of that will be clean. A lot of that is going to be clean steel, new batteries, new electric vehicles, new charging station, hydrogen jets, hydrogen planes. We can talk about building new factories, new industry, new manufacturing, and that may cut across the political divide.
On cannabis decriminalization, you and I have spoken about this before. My sense has been it's never been a particularly interesting topic for President Joe Biden. But at the same time, I didn't think he was going to do any student loan debt relief, and I was very, very much wrong there. Do you get any sense that there may be something before November on cannabis from the Oval Office?
I don't. I obviously am not just for decriminalizing it. I'm for taking it off Schedule C for legalizing marijuana. But I think this is something that's personal for the president. My understanding is that he has had people with substance abuse in his own family, that is informing his view. It's obviously a view that I disagree with, but because it's something that seems to be a sincerely held conviction on his part, one that I disagree with, I'm not sure that we're going to see movement on that.
Do you expect that in the long term, the cannabis issue is going to be dealt with more at the state level as it has been so far, or that at some point there will be a federal change?
I think it's going to start at the state level, but my sense is within the next couple cycles, presidential cycles, there'll be a federal change, because you have people on the Republican side, the younger generation, that understands the importance of legalizing cannabis and the medical uses, and the fact that cannabis often is less dangerous, certainly less dangerous than the opioids, and yet more restricted than some of the opioids.
Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming midterms. So if we want to take just one forecast, the 538 forecast says it's roughly a 2-to-1 chance that Democrats hold the Senate. And by a roughly 4-to-1 margin, Democrats are likely to lose the House. Now, on the House, some of the recent momentum you mentioned is not really in those numbers quite yet, but it's a pretty significant hill to climb at this point, and sort of the most mathematically likely outcome is a divided Congress. It seems to me that this will be 2 years of total Republican obstruction to prevent any major legislation, and then using the lack of accomplishments that they cause as justification to vote for a Republican president in 2024. That seems to be what the game plan is going to be. Are you and your colleagues talking about that as the most likely outcome, and what can be done, if anything?
Well, we're still hopeful that we can hold a House, especially after New York 19 and the surprising result there, where Pat Ryan wasn't expected to win. He really ran on abortion rights. We're seeing, as you know, increased registration among young women, in particular in Ohio, in Pennsylvania. So are we underdogs to hold the House? Yes, of course. The president's party always loses seats. We're in a tough economic climate, but we're still focused on how we do that. And the argument that we're making to be able to do that is where is the Republican agenda? I mean, we have an agenda. I can tell you what we will do on inflation. We're going to try to get childcare done. We're going to make sure that we are providing greater benefits for Medicare. We're going to increase Social Security. We're going to produce more things in America. The Republicans have no agenda. They're basically just running anti-Biden.
Yeah, it's basically just obstruct. There's no doubt about that. But nonetheless, if they successfully do that for 2 years, it's not a super strong argument for Democrats to say, well, yes, we got nothing done, but it wasn't our fault. I mean, it doesn't sound like the type of thing that voters will buy. So what do you do if that does end up being the situation?
Well, it depends. I mean, obviously, President Obama and President Clinton had obstructionist Republican Congresses and both won re-election, and they did it by showing just how extreme the Republican Congresses were.
Right.
So it depends on whether the Republicans overplay their hand, which they're very capable of doing. I mean, if all they're doing when they take power is trying to impeach Joe Biden and do hearings on Hunter Biden and all the other conspiracy theories, then I think the American public will tire of that and say we need more reasonable people. In the past, when they've had the majority, they have overreached. So there's no reason to think they wouldn't do that again.
Yeah, that laptop from hell is really something, Congressman. We've got to look at that hard drive, especially. Last thing I want to ask about: how much in the among your colleagues is there discussion of the Mar-a-Lago search warrant and just the 60 Truth Social posts a day from the former president? Like, something is very, very wrong over there. How much does that play in the day-to-day between you and your colleagues, and sort of considering that side of what's taking place as you think about your 2022 campaign and then moving beyond 22? Or is it wholly irrelevant to what you and your colleagues are doing?
Well, we've tried not to talk about it that much because it's a law enforcement matter, and we've actually tried not to politicize it. I mean, the last thing you want is every Democratic member of Congress going on CNN or your podcast giving an opinion on what the Justice Department should do.
Right.
That said, what does come up are the threats, frankly, that colleagues are facing in this environment, and they're more than I've ever seen in 6 years. You had Eric Swalwell post yesterday about the threat he received, one of his staffers received, really ugly things. And unfortunately, I'm hearing that kind of threats and violence much more from colleagues, which is concerning.
Are there, I mean, obviously, I don't want you to share what's being done, but is there a different or more involved sort of security apparatus that is now involved because of this? There
is, but you can't protect in an open democracy everyone from a culture of violence. I mean, look, members of Congress, we are in parades. I was just in the Pride Parade in San Jose. We do town halls with hundreds of people. We sit in coffee shops, and that's how it's supposed to be. And for many, many decades, people did that on both parties without really worrying about political violence. I mean, obviously, you had crazy shootings and mass shootings, but those were one-off incidents. Now you're at a point where there are members of Congress, unfortunately, who will be advised to sit out at town hall or a parade or a community events. And this is one of the real damages that doesn't get talked about enough in our democracy that the right is causing, which is this fear of being connected to people.
Yeah, and sadly, the sort of growing belief among some that violence is an acceptable way to try to achieve political change or to make your opinions known, which is really scary. And that goes to the gun culture aspect as well, right? Seeing guns as a legitimate tool to solve interpersonal problems.
You know, when I was growing up, the one thing, almost a cliche, was, well, in America, we solve our political problems without violence. We have a peaceful transfer of power. I mean, everyone would say that as sort of pointing to why we're the greatest democracy. Yeah. And it's sad to me that something that basic is now being being questioned. Fortunately, we still are in a relatively peaceful place, and these are threats, and they haven't become full-born assassination attempts. But in other countries, you literally have political parties trying to assassinate each other, and we've got to be very careful that we don't cross into a line where violence becomes condoned as part of the political culture.
Yeah, we don't want to end up there. And Lindsey Graham earlier this week getting dangerously close to that, but we'll leave that for another conversation. We've been speaking with Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna, who represents California's 17th district. Always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.